and advertisers.
All right, what's happening, everybody? Happy Monday. Good to be back here in the saddle. Thanks so much for joining us. It's Pushing the Limits. You could be watching, listening on the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press Network, the FMAM dial, my personal YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. Thanks so much for being here, man. I hope everybody had an awesome weekend. Let me give people a little rundown. I wasn't here on Friday. I wasn't feeling great. So Thursday, when I did the live show on Thursday, I think I mentioned this briefly. I had a McRib, went to McDonald's, and that was my first mistake, right? And it felt like a minor case of food poisoning, man. I think I threw up like 5 times during the show on Thursday. I hit it really well, but I was not feeling very well. But I took the day off on Friday. Back at it today. And we're here live for all of you. And we got a lot to get to today. Obviously, we're going to be covering another school shooting. We'll get to that here in a minute. ABC lawsuit where George Stephanopoulos, they agreed to pay Trump $15 million. Boy, I'm going to talk about that coming up here in a little bit. Also, Danielle Penny was invited by Donald Trump to the Army-Navy game. Why is it that Republicans always seem to honor and lift up and look up to heroes when black people are killed? I'm just asking that question. I'm just asking the question, everybody. I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show as well. But we have to start off the show today on a very sad note. Several people have been killed at a school shooting at a Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm giving you the latest information that I know. A total of 3 people were killed, including the shooter. These are very, very young children in this school that'll be affected for the rest of their lives. And the stuff I hear on social media, particularly X, was it a trans shooter? I mean, it's just so despicable and it's so disgusting. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to have to continue to talk about all these mass shootings in this country, and in this case involving young children who were running for their lives, we're hearing reports. Now, it's way too early to know a motive. It's way too early to know anything about the shooter, even though if you go on X, you'll see a bunch of conspiracy theories and a bunch of idiots. But here's what I will tell you. Like many other mass shootings, those on the far right will say thoughts and prayers. They won't talk about gun control. They'll say it's too early. Now's not the time. But then they'll talk about things that they think are more important to the American people, like banning books, drag queens, because they think the sky is falling with drag queen reading. And they'll talk about trans women in bathrooms. Those topics they talk about pretty much on a daily basis. I mean, Nancy Mace has tweeted out thousands, and she did it again today. But nothing about another school shooting. And if they do decide to tweet something, it'll be thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. And they'll continue to talk about banning books. They'll continue to talk about transgender surgery and trans people in bathrooms. You know, the 2-tier justice system, so on and so forth. But when it comes to gun control and these young children, not just those who lost their lives today, but what about the children that were running for their lives today that'll be traumatized for the rest of their life? But people like Ted Cruz and others will say, we need to harden our schools. J.D. Vance, yeah, our windows need to be stronger. That's their answer to a real problem like all the gun violence in this country. So to talk about this horrible tragedy, and, you know, I wanted this guy to come on this show because I love having him on. I think he's great. And I didn't think that we'd have to talk about another school shooting. It's so tragic. But joining us right now on the show, he is Pete Dominic. You've seen him on CNN and MSNBC. Very funny stand-up comedian. And he also has 2 daughters, so I'm sure this hits home for him. And I wanted to get his take on this, and it's a pleasure to have him on. Pete, thank you so much for being here again. Good to have you. How are you, sir?
Brian, great to be back. I really appreciate you having me on your show. I've really enjoyed watching and listening to it. And yeah, it's terrible. I just saw this tweet. Breaking news. Well-regulated militia opens fire in Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. Cheap thoughts and useless prayers are now being rushed to the scene. More on this soon-to-be-forgotten and then repeated story as it develops.
So true. So true, Pete. And I try not to go on X as much as I used to because it's just a cesspool, as you know, of bigotry and hatred. But I see some of these people on the right saying, oh, I bet it was a trans shooter. And it's just despicable comments. And there are parents, unfortunately, there are going to be some kids that aren't going to be going home today. And instead of talking about, hey, we need to do something to fix this problem, attacking the trans community and saying, oh, Democrats are going to make this political.
There can be any number of reasons why any of us get really upset, very emotional, become, in some extreme cases, homicidal or suicidal. It happens all over the country all the time. But most people don't necessarily have access to a gun right now. If you want to, you can. But the question isn't to talk about mental health or why they did this. We can get to that, and we should. We always will. I mean, if we had some kind of motive right now, as we quickly got with Luigi Mangione, we pretty much understand why he did what he did. He wrote a goddamn manifesto. But no, the issue is access to guns. That's the issue. So if you want to score political points and say this person had these beliefs and was radicalized by this guy or that philosophy, fine. But it's the access to guns. So if they're a far left-wing radical or a far right-wing white supremacist, it's all one common thread. It's only in America, only in America. It's the access to guns and the bullets. And I've been working on this issue for years with every single major local organization, all the way from the top to the bottom, on the issue of gun violence. It's a huge issue, and these stories get so much attention. And the last point I would make is right now on TV, as we're talking, it happened just, I don't know, a couple of hours ago. But like MSNBC is now on their third law enforcement expert that they invited on to speculate about another nightmare school shooting. But none of the experts have any inside information, Brian. I mean, there's an argument that this type of coverage is part of the problem. It perpetuates this kind of violence. And, you know, no matter what happens, it's like you bring on an expert, a plane crashes, I used to do this joke in my stand-up act, and then they just bring some guy on who doesn't know any more than you or I. It's like, why do we know why it crashed? No, I don't know. But I can tell you that this plane was the kind with wings and 2 jet engines. And I've flown this before. And it's, you know, usually it handles pretty well. I'm not quite sure what happened. Yeah, nobody knows what happened. Get off the air. Update us when you do.
Right. You know, you're right. It's all speculation, right? I just was listening to Andrew McCabe. Nice guy, right? But he doesn't know why this happened or who the shooter is or motive or anything.
It's just law enforcement people, because why are we inviting all the law enforcement people? Invite the anti-gun violence people on right away. Invite Moms Demand on right away. Invite Chris Brown at Brady. Invite Shannon Watts at Demand. Invite David Hogg. Invite all of these young activists to come on and talk about gun violence. It's the gun violence. Kid didn't walk in with a knife. It's a gun. It doesn't happen in other countries because they don't have access to guns. And these stupid solutions, like you mentioned earlier, Ted Cruz, how dumb do you have to be? First of all, the shooter, as Dave Chappelle famously or infamously told in a stand-up bit, he's in the shooting drills. He's, in this case, a student at the school. He knows what protections they're taking. So you can up-armor your school all you want. You know what I would do, Brian? I would wait in the parking lot with my assault rifle. So what are you going to do then? Put a dome over the parking lot and a security gate to get in there? It's preposterous, these notions. It's access to guns, period.
You are so right. And I'm a personal friend. Fred Gutenberg is such a great guy. And, you know, I have him on this show all the time. And sadly, usually it's after a school shooting. He lost his daughter in Parkland. You're so right about that. You want to hear from those kinds of people because they know what it's like, sadly, to lose somebody in a school shooting, to lose your child. And yet, when you hear, you know, the Greg Abbotts of the world and others after a mass shooting like this one, I think it was after the Walmart shooting in Texas, El Paso, where he said, well, now's not the time to talk about gun control. Let's not talk about gun control right now. Why is it, Pete, that when you hear these Republicans that are running for office, in almost all of their campaign commercials, they're bragging about their A+ rating from the NRA. But yet I've never seen or heard of a Democrat bragging about their A+ rating from the NRA. It's always the Republicans that are bragging about their NRA rating. It appears to me that what they care about is remaining in power, getting the money from the NRA, and they put that and prioritize that ahead of our public safety.
Well, I understand this issue all too intimately. I've been covering it for years. I've talked to all sides of it. I've moderated debates on it and so on. And I mean, there's a lot of ways to talk about it. First of all, I think that it's not necessarily because of the NRA money anymore. As a matter of fact, the NRA is bankrupt and like on its way out. There are plenty of other organizations, but the movement itself is very powerful. The pro-gun movement. I don't have to tell you or anybody listening how powerful this movement is. So Republicans really have to be beholden to the ideology of anybody can have guns all the time, as much as you want, unregulated gun industry, gun buying. They have to be beholden to that far end of the spectrum, or they'll get primaried. So it's less about the money, and the money comes in from individual donors when you hold that kind of view and send out your Christmas card with you and your family members holding AR-15s. I mean, these people, including you mentioned Governor Abbott, he is a particularly vile, insidious creature on this issue. He once tweeted, Brian, go look it up. Everybody should. He put out a tweet years ago that basically shamed Texan residents for who did not buy guns. He said, you should, something to the effect of, you should be embarrassed if you're not a gun owner. And the most important part of this issue is the lie that's been told to a generation of Americans now, which is that the Second Amendment has always said that you have a right to a personal firearm. I've been covering this issue with constitutional law scholars for over a decade. That's not what the Second Amendment said, and it's not what the Supreme Court held forever until the 80s, until the rise of the NRA, and it did become a huge lobbying effort because obviously they got to make more and more guns. But let's be clear, this was not the interpretation of the Second Amendment for the vast majority of American history. And, you know, don't ask me, ask the right-wing former chairman of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, who said it's absurd to think that that's the interpretation of it. And I could find you that quote. But I mean, this is something that's been hijacked, this entire movement, this interpretation of the Second Amendment. It's not what it says. I most infamously got in a huge argument with Joe Rogan on his show about this. And I could just tell you, you know, it's obviously one of the biggest shows in the world. That was November 19. It was pretty big then. And I heard from listeners for months, still do every once in a while, that are telling me to kill myself because of my correct view of the history on guns, much less my personal opinion. So it's obviously a really powerful, animating issue, and will continue to be no matter how many kids get killed and no matter what the name of the school is. And it does.
Yeah, you're right. If you're just joining us, he is Pete Dominic, CNN contributor. Wanted to talk about some other issues with you, and we'll get to that. But let's talk about solutions, Pete, to gun control. You know, I talk about these issues all the time. Sadly, it's usually after another mass shooting. I've said I believe the age should be 18 to 21. I believe that we should have mandatory training. Just like you need to be trained to drive a car, you should be trained on how to use a weapon and store it properly, so on and so forth. I also believe that there should be the assault weapons ban that fizzled out in the early 90s. Republicans allowed it to fizzle out. I also think that should be implemented. Red flag laws that work, that need to be consistent state to state. I've always believed in that as well. And I also believe that if you sell a gun illegally to somebody, it should be a mandatory prison sentence. Now, I don't expect all those things to be done. Give me a couple. Give me 2 out of those 5. And if the argument is, well, why would you raise the age 18 to 21 when you could be 18 and serve in the military? Yeah, but they're trained how to use the weapons. If you're in the military, they train you. An 18-year-old today, for the most part, just like the Uvalde, Texas shooting, the day he turns 18 could walk right into a gun store with 0 training. And, you know, 80% of the country believe in comprehensive background checks. Why can't we get this on the books? I mean, just give me 2 out of those, and I believe it'll save lives, Pete.
Yeah, you mentioned just a couple of reforms that would certainly be effective, but if you go to bradyunited.org, they have a whole bunch of others, including many that you didn't mention. You know, when we think about these shootings, we sensationalize them because obviously when it's more than a few people, God, it's horrible at a grocery store or in a place of sanctuary, a synagogue or a church. But man, if it's kids in a school, there's nothing worse than that, obviously. But the bottom line is most gun violence that takes lives is homicide and suicide. That's by far the most, and even accidental death. And so one of the major reforms that could be instituted is locks, putting smart locks, which are highly available and effective on your guns. So God forbid your teenage kid doesn't find your gun and more than likely take their own life than take the lives of their friends, their siblings by accident, or kids in school. So there's so many more ideas and laws that we could change. You mentioned a few, but smart locks. Why can't we do that? Inspire parents to lock up their guns at home. 4.6 million children live in homes with an unsecured firearm, Brian. I mean, if you're a gun-owning parent, you have to take responsibility for your gun.
What you're talking about, Sandy Hook. Unfortunately, the mother, it cost her life, but she had a mentally deranged son, and somehow he couldn't even interact with other people. He was, had so many issues, and yet she taught him how to use a gun and gave him access to guns. It cost her own life and all those innocent children in Sandy Hook. So many other things, Pete, to talk about. Obviously, this is breaking news. We're going to learn a little bit more information, I would hope, in the coming hours and days, weeks and months of how and why this happened. But I wanted to get your take on this because over the weekend, I'm seeing images of Daniel Penny, who was invited by Donald Trump to the Army-Navy football game. And I say to myself, and I posted this on social media today, Pete, why is it that the Republican Party, if you're the McCloskeys, a white couple, pointing your weapons at Black Lives Matter protesters, even though they're not on your private property, you become a star within the Republican Party. You speak at the RNC convention. Why is it that a guy like a Kyle Rittenhouse becomes a hero? He's paid by Turning Point to make speeches at some college universities. When Kyle Rittenhouse, fine, he wasn't convicted, but he's still a moron. He should have never been there to begin with in Kenosha. And now Daniel Penny, somehow, whether he's guilty or not guilty, I know he was found not guilty. If you put a black man in a chokehold and keep him in a chokehold after he's unconscious, somehow you're a hero. And I asked this question because Jordan Williams killed a black man. He's black. He killed a black man in New York City. It was self-defense. Why isn't Donald Trump inviting him to football games? I just feel like the answer is pretty simple. And I feel like in this country, at times, if you're white and you do something to somebody black, the Republican National Convention will have you speak at their convention and you're some sort of hero, Pete.
Yeah. Well, it's been the case for years now. I mean, you can go back to George Zimmerman, who murdered Trayvon Martin, who was minding his own business, walking home. And you can talk about Michael Brown in Ferguson, who was killed by a police officer. And whether or not it was, quote, some kind of vigilante justice or not, it's just too often that when white people kill black people, that it looks exactly like that. And people cheer it on and they celebrate it. And that is the order of things and the way that it should be. I mean, there's just no doubt about the racial, not undertones, but overtones of all of these different examples. But even if you wanted to, agree with the jury in the case of what happened to Jordan Neely with this guy, Daniel Penny, even if you wanted to agree with that, you don't celebrate it. You don't act like he's a hero. You don't put him up on a pedestal like that. He murdered somebody. And that's the case with many of these issues. And they elevate them and they put them. And I think more than anything, that's the sad part of this is because there are a certain frighteningly large percentage of Americans who can see people like this and want to revere them and want to respect them. And, this Kyle Rittenhouse, that kid is the saddest sack of an American story I've ever seen. He's always been. And it's just a pathetic situation. And they blew him all the way up. And then in many cases, he's deflated. I mean, what a sad life to be known for that your entire life. It's a terrible illustration of who we are. But let's be clear, it is who we are in terms of a large percentage of people who see that. But make no mistake, black folks and others see this for exactly what it seems to be.
No question about it. And I'm going to continue to point this out. I don't believe Daniel Penny is a hero. I don't believe Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. I think he's an idiot. And the McCloskeys should have been convicted of crimes as well.
I have a chip on my shoulder about this too, because I did a heroic thing. Right? Yeah. On a plane once, a guy went crazy and I and other passengers restrained him. And the news press never got a hold of it. And I got no credit for it at all. I saved a plane from a mentally ill man who was becoming violent against people. I took my belt off and I tied his ankles in a chair. The guy ripped my shirt off. I was like John McClane. and Die Hard, and not one news camera, nothing. That's why on shows like yours, I like to just put it out there. What about me? Where's my trophy? You know what they sent me? The airline, after the fact, sent me, a bald man, a hair care travel kit. Oh, thanks. Thank you.
I wouldn't have much. I wouldn't have much use for that either, Pete.
No racial undertones. This is a big man. I and others took him down. Nothing. Yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay. I was just watching Die Hard yesterday. Right? Shoot the Glass. One of my favorite movies of all time.
No credit, not even from you. Even after telling you that, you just move on to a movie. You don't say, wow, you are heroic, and there should be a statue of you built on that airline's gate.
Pete, I put Scott Jennings as my number one hero. You're number two. Is that okay?
That's fine. I'll take it.
All right, fair enough. All right. So I had to bring this up because ABC paid off Donald Trump a whopping $15 million because George Stephanopoulos called Donald Trump a rapist, which I find very interesting because, Pete, I want to get your thoughts on this. Donald Trump is found liable of sexual abuse. The judge in the case characterized it as a rape. Now, I'm just going by what the judge said. Are you surprised that ABC decided to pay off this settlement of $15 million?
Yeah. I don't understand why they did this. I mean, they paid $15 million to Trump for saying exactly what the judge in the E. Jean Carroll case said. It's a stunning capitulation. I'm surprised that George Stephanopoulos went along with it. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised to see him resign, but I guess he needs to get his $20 million a year keep coming or whatever he gets there. But yeah, ABC really screwed up. They caved on this. I can't imagine why they did it. ABC was never going to lose this defamation lawsuit to Trump. They agreed to pay $15 million probably because it's good for business. So, I mean, I would say that we just have to make sure that we don't let the oligarchs continue to gaslight us. This is fascist. It's fascism. And we're seeing it unfold right before us. And anybody who capitulates or pays him off or pays his demands, I must be missing something. But Mark Elias, who is one of the heroic lawyers, even more heroic than what I did on that airplane that day, right? He said, knee bent, ring kissed. Another legacy news outlet chooses obedience. A reminder that this is what we're doing. This is where we're at. You can't obey. You have to be unapologetically pro-democracy until your microphone and your camera turns off. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Give in, cave in? I see these people capitulating left and right, and it's sad, but it further stiffens my spine. I'll tell you that.
It's incredible, Pete, because after Donald Trump was found liable for sexual abuse in the E. Jean Carroll case, if you remember, he did that CNN town hall with Caitlin Collins. God bless her. That was a difficult one to watch. Yeah. And he defamed E. Jean Carroll, and he was sued for defamation after he was already found liable. And when you have a judge, now listen, we can get into the weeds on what exactly sexual abuse is. It is my personal opinion that if any type of sexual abuse is rape, that's my personal opinion of it. And when the judge characterizes it as rape, I don't think George Stephanopoulos said anything wrong. And I find it also interesting that he's interviewing Nancy Mace, the disgrace, as I call her, who cares more about trans issues and plays the victim all the time, and has tweeted about trans issues thousands of times, it seems like, in the last month. And he's asking her a very fair question. If you're a woman, by the way, I don't know if Nancy Mace is telling the truth or not, by the way. I would question her on anything, because apparently if you shake her hand, you broke her arm. I don't know what you make of that story.
Because she's a victim of rape. I mean, I'll believe her, but what you're about to say is the more important point, that, you're a victim. I mean, I think you're going to make that point. Yeah. That if you're the victim of sexual assault or rape, and then you're supporting someone who's perpetuated sexual assault and or rape, allegedly dozens of times, which should surprise zero people who knew Donald Trump in 2002 would be surprised by that, which is why when I was on The Apprentice in 2004 and had the opportunity to meet him, they hired me to host a benefit. I was just doing stand-up comedy, and I hosted a lot of things. So they hired me. I was on the show. They filmed it as part of the show. And they said, do you want to meet Donald Trump? He's going to be here soon. And I said, does he want to meet us? And they said, not necessarily, but we can arrange for a meeting. I'm like, I'm good. I just want to do the show, because I knew then in 2004, Brian, that this guy was a rapist. I knew it then. So it's not like it's news. We all know it. And the idea that someone or anybody supports him, just knowing that alone has always been, to me, the most disgusting. Just you can't really keep your name credible if you are an in-the-know person. You know that he's done these horrible things to women, and yet you still support him for, mayor, much less president of the United States. It is disgusting. Any other job, any man who had been accused of these things, and you know the men are doing it. Come on. Yep. I mean, you also, time, and you're rich, and you admit it, and you say, I can get away with it when I'm famous. This man shouldn't be anywhere near any type of organization, public or private, period, end of story.
Yeah, I agree. Also important to note that Donald Trump's own ex-wife, who passed away a few years ago, once accused Donald Trump of rape in a deposition. And then Donald Trump paid her off to keep her quiet. Very similar to a Pete Hegseth. Very similar to Bill O'Reilly and Fox News. It's very interesting, isn't it? Let's just pay them off and keep them quiet and throw millions of dollars at people. It really is.
Roger Ailes created Donald Trump in a way, and he created O'Reilly, and he created and gave sanctuary and protection to predator men to come work for me, because I'm a disgusting man who has women come into my office and twirl, do a spin, so I can see them before I hire them. That's Roger Ailes. He was a disgusting animal pig of a man, and he created that atmosphere at Fox News. And we know that obviously there's plenty of people who can create those atmospheres at small businesses and large corporations. But let's be clear, it's almost seemingly like the cost of doing business, the cover charge to get a job in the Trump White House. It's like, hey, have you assaulted any women in the past? No? Yeah. Well, then we're not hiring. Yes? Oh, here's a cabinet job.
It's crazy. It's almost like a prerequisite at Fox News that you have to be accused of sexually assaulting somebody to get a gig over there. It's crazy. Pete, I love what you do, man. I really do. Love your podcast. If you want to share that information out so people can follow you, watch your podcast, which I still have to appear on, by the way. I haven't been on your show yet, so we got to do that.
Do that any day this week you want.
Cool. Let's do it. Talk about that information, how people can find you.
I'm trying to learn to be a big YouTube star like you. So because of you, I'm inspired. YouTube.com/Stand Up with Pete. And it's a podcast every day, wherever you get your podcast, Stand Up with Pete Dominic. We've got an amazing community of people, and we hang out at 8 p.m. East every Monday and Thursday. It's probably the best thing to kind of promote and market in my way, because I love this community of people. We get like tons of people, over 50, 60, 70 people on a Zoom. And I do, comedy, and we bust each other's chops, and we have this great community that I welcome anybody who's viewing this to come check us out. And let's have you on this week. Any day that works for you works for me. I love it.
Pete, love it, man. You're one of the best in the business, super talented, and I always appreciate it when you take the time. Look forward to doing your show, and have a great rest of your day, my friend. And appreciate the time. Thanks, Pete. Good to see you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Pete. That's Pete Dominic, everybody. Love Pete. He's the best. Honest, sincere, good dude, very talented, very funny. Man, he's been everywhere, man. He's on The Daily Show. He's been on Bill Maher's show. He's been on, done the Colbert Report. This guy has done everything. He just did the Joe Rogan show. So it's an honor to have Pete on the show. All right, I'm going to go through some of the breaking news and some of the big stories. And then, of course, we'll be taking phone calls on the other side of the break. But I want to start with, we'll get to the school shooting, of course. And I do want to talk a little bit more about Daniel Penny. But I want to start by talking about ABC News paying off a $15 million settlement to Donald Trump following the president-elect's defamation lawsuit. And I'm shocked, I'm surprised, and I can't believe that they paid this money out. So if you're wondering what soundbite caused this to happen in the first place, I'm going to play a little bit of you. Now, this is George Stephanopoulos, and he is interviewing Nancy Mace, the disgrace. And I believe George Stephanopoulos asked a very fair question, but this is the soundbite that apparently cost ABC $15 million. Have a listen to this.
I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court. This was
a civil court.
It was a civil court. And by the way, she joked about the judgment and what she was going to do with all that money. And I find that offensive.
I'm asking you
about as a rape victim, who's been shamed for years now because of her rape. You're trying to shame me again by asking me this political question.
You've repeated that again.
I think it's offensive.
I think she's offensive. First of all, I don't see anything wrong with that question. And I'm going to read for you Judge Kaplan here in a quote of why some people would characterize it as rape, because the judge overseeing the case characterized it as rape. Anyway, so Judge Kaplan provided an analysis. He said, quote, he wrote, "The only issue on which the jury did not find in Carol's favor was whether she proved that Trump raped her within the narrow technical meaning of the term in the New York penal law. The jury was instructed that it could find that Mr. Trump raped Miss Carol only if it found that he forcibly penetrated Miss Carol." And I'm not going to go too much into detail, but when going on to saying, determining that Mr. Trump could have forcibly penetrated Miss Carol, again, without going too much into detail, commonly considered rape in other contexts. Okay? So, the judge gave a generic answer in whether this was considered rape or not. Here's what we know for sure. And I repeat myself once again. Donald Trump was found liable. A jury decided that he was liable for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll. Now, if you want to get into the weeds on what rape is, I consider, and this is my personal opinion, any sexual abuse as rape. Now, I believe ABC decided to just, let's get this out of the way. They have boatloads of money. We don't want to see George Stephanopoulos testify. We don't want to see him in a deposition. Let's just pay the $15 million and let's move on. Give him the money and let Melania use it for her plastic surgery. Let Donnie use it for his orange makeup. But I believe ABC made a huge mistake. I really do. He is found liable of sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll. That's not up for debate. You can say, oh, two-tier justice system, liberal courts. But then when Daniel Penny is found not guilty, all of a sudden, oh, what a great jury. Because these right-wing turds, every single time a case doesn't go their way, they were calling Derek Chauvin a hero back in the day when George Floyd was murdered. Yes, by the way, Derek Chauvin is a convicted murderer. He's in jail right now. So if a verdict goes their way, great jury. You don't hear anything about liberals in a two-tier justice system. But when a verdict does not go their way, all of a sudden, must be liberals, must be George Soros, two-tier justice system. And I do find it very interesting. Daniel Penny was invited by Donald Trump to the Army-Navy game. J.D. Vance was there and others, Mike Johnson. I wanted to ask you guys this question because I do find this very interesting. Why is it that the Republican Party always seems to look up to these white people, like the Kyle Rittenhouses, like the McCloskeys, and like Daniel Penny? Why is that? Why is it that during a Black Lives Matter protest, when none of these people were on the McCloskey private property, the McCloskeys, a white couple, Republicans, of course, get out onto their front lawn, take out their guns, and point them at the protesters. They were charged with several crimes, but the Republican governor made sure that the charges were dropped. And what happened to the McCloskeys? Because if you point weapons at black people within the Republican Party, you turn into a star. The McCloskeys spoke at the Republican National Convention. They were looked up to, and probably still are, as heroes. Why is it that Kyle Rittenhouse, at the age of 17, another white guy, shows up to a Black Lives Matter protest the week before he's heard and seen on a video saying he was dreaming about shooting people if they were stealing from a convenience store? It's caught on tape. This was his train of thinking. He wasn't caught on tape saying, boy, I really want to go there and help those people and help people. I want to be a medic. No, he dressed up in camouflage, showed up with an AR-15. And whether it's self-defense or not, he was an idiot, and even he admits he should have never been there. What happens within the Republican Party? Turning Point USA starts paying Kyle Rittenhouse. He gets a book deal. He makes speeches, paid speeches. Why? For being an idiot. Why does the Republican Party look up to the McCloskeys and Kyle Rittenhouse? I put Daniel Penny in a very similar category. I am willing to believe that Daniel Penny didn't want to kill anybody that day. I am willing to believe that maybe he had the right intentions. Maybe. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But if his job and all he cared about was protecting all the people on that subway, I ask you this very question. Everybody on that subway had cleared out. He kept him in the chokehold. Why is that? Why is it that he kept this black man in the chokehold after he was unconscious? If in fact he was just trying to save lives and he wanted to get rid of the threat so that nobody on that subway could be harmed, everybody had already left the subway. He kept him in the chokehold. Why is it that there were several people in the subway that testified that they told him to release him and he wouldn't do it? Why is that? Daniel Penny is no hero. But why is it that Donald Trump invites Daniel Penny to the football game? Why is it that Donald Trump invites Kyle Rittenhouse to the White House? Why is it that Donald Trump invites the McCloskeys to the White House and they're speaking at the Republican National Convention? Why is that? A guy by the name of Jordan Williams, I've talked about this case on this show. It has some similarity, but a lot of differences. But Jordan Williams, a black man on a subway with his girlfriend, got into a physical altercation with a guy who was threatening him and others on a subway. Jordan Williams killed him, stabbed him in self-defense. Some people would look at Jordan Williams as a hero. Why doesn't anybody on the right invite Jordan Williams to their event? Why hasn't Donald Trump invited Jordan Williams to a football game? Why hasn't Jordan Williams been invited to the White House? I'll tell you why. Because he's black. That's why. But in 2024, if you're a white man that kills a black man, in this case Daniel Penny, or if you're a dumb white kid like Kyle Rittenhouse who shows up at the age of 17 dressed up in camouflage with an AR-15 and a couple people end up dying, you're a hero. If you point your guns at a bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters who are not on your private property, you speak at the Republican National Convention. Folks, why is that? A lot of heroes in this country that are black. Police officers, firefighters, good Samaritans. Every day, wonderful people in this country that happen to be black do heroic things. Happens every day. Why isn't Donald Trump inviting those people to the White House? Why isn't Donald Trump inviting those people to football games? I'm just asking the question. Why is it? Well, guess what? I'll give you the answer. Because those on the far right love it. Those on the far right love Kyle Rittenhouse. He's a hero to them. You show up to a Black Lives Matter protest with a gun and camouflage at 17 years old. You're not an idiot. You're a hero within the Republican Party. If you show up and go out in your front lawn and point your guns at a bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters, somehow you're a hero. And if you keep a black man in a chokehold for 6 minutes, even after he's found unconscious and he ends up dying, you are a hero within the Republican Party. This isn't a coincidence. Tell me I'm wrong. This isn't a coincidence. Imagine for a moment. Imagine. There's a protest with a bunch of white people. They could be Proud Boy members. I don't care. They're all a bunch of white people. They get through a gate, but they're not on your private property. And there's a black couple that goes out in the front of their house, points their gun at a bunch of white people. Would they be speaking at the Republican National Convention? Now, obviously, the answer is no. Imagine if a 17-year-old black kid showed up in Beverly Hills and there was some sort of protest and a 17-year-old black kid end up killing 2 people, might be in self-defense, end up killing 2 people, shooting a third. Would the Republican Party be paying the 17-year-old black kid to make speeches at Turning Point? Just asking the question. And imagine if Daniel Penny was black and he was on a subway And let's just say there was a white guy that was deranged that happened to be wearing, I don't know, a MAGA hat. He didn't have any weapons on him. He never made physical contact with anybody on that subway. But the black man decided to put him in a chokehold for 6 minutes, kept him in a chokehold even after he was found unconscious. Black man killed him. I'm just asking this question. Would Donald Trump have invited that black man to the Army-Navy game? Ask yourself that question. If Daniel Penny was black and he killed a white man in the exact same circumstance, do you think Donald Trump would be inviting that black man to the Army-Navy game? It's a simple question, yes or no. And I ask you that question when we come back because I want to take some phone calls. If Daniel Penny was black and the same circumstances happened, only the victim was white. Yes, I do think Jordan Neely was a victim that day. Would Donald Trump have invited a black Daniel Penny to a football game? Think about that. I ask you that question, and I want all of you to answer that question, and I'm going to open up the phone lines when we come back. We are also covering the breaking news of another school shooting. From right-wing Republicans out there, you will hear thoughts and prayers. You won't hear anything about gun control. You'll hear right-wing conspiracy theories that, it must have been a trans shooter, right? But will you hear anything other than we need to harden our schools? Our windows need to be stronger. Our doors need to be stronger. You won't hear anything serious coming from many MAGA Republicans today. Number to call, 702-221-7283. And again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. We're covering the breaking news of another school shooting, this one at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, where we know of at least several people killed, including the shooter. We're covering that breaking news, and we're also talking about Daniel Penny invited to the Army-Navy football game, and I'm posing you all this question. If Daniel Penny was black and he killed a white man, do you think Donald Trump would be calling him a hero, and would he have invited him to the football game? Just posing that question to all of you, and I want to hear from you. Number to call, 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you want to be a part of the program, 702-221-7283. Folks, this is an independently owned radio show. We rely on people like you to support what we do. If you enjoy this show, then we ask that you support our show by checking out the website, pushingthelimits.live. At pushingthelimits.live, you can subscribe to my YouTube page, which is free, at PTL Radio Show. We just passed 50,000 subscribers last week, and we sell merchandise on there. Shirts, hats, beanies, you name it, we sell it. There's also a donate button right on the front page. You could donate $5, $10, $20 a month. Whatever you can afford, we appreciate it. Check out the website, pushingthelimits.live. Your phone calls are coming up next, 702-221-7283. Be back in 90 seconds. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercials, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Couple good. By the way, Adam Mockler is going to be joining us a week from today. We've got Leonard Cardinal, 25-year lieutenant, going to be joining us in studio tomorrow. Talk a little bit more about gun control. So certainly looking forward to that. Brett Raymer rescheduled from the hit TV show Tanked. He's going to be joining us in studio this week as well. Please join me, because I'm there all the time, the official gaming bar of the Pushing the Limits radio show. Of course, I'm talking about Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. My favorite gaming bar by far, not just in Vegas, but really in the country, quite frankly. Great promotions, including the Pass the Puck contest during Vegas Golden Knights games, where you can win up to $500 in free slot play while you're actively playing. Check them out. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. By the way, today's Monday. If you earn 300 points, you get a free bottle of wine. Jackson's Bar and Grill. Tell them I sent you. So we've been talking about several stories. Of course, Daniel Penny, I ask you all the question. If Daniel Penny was black and the victim was white and the same circumstances took place where you put him in a chokehold for 6 minutes, do you think that Donald Trump would have invited a black Daniel Penny to the Army-Navy game? Now, my answer, no, I don't think so, but I want to hear from you on that. We're also covering the breaking news, of course, of another school shooting. This time at a Christian school, where you hear people on X that are spreading conspiracy theories. Oh, it must have been a trans shooter. I mean, it's just, they're so insensitive and it's so absurd. Let me tell you what's the most insensitive. When someone talks about gun control and now's not the time. I got an A+ rating from the NRA, but now's not the time to talk about gun control. We need to harden our schools, as if a window or a locked door is going to stop somebody who's willing to take their own life and killing innocent people. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's start off with Ray. Ray is first up on PTL. Hey, Ray, what's going on, man?
Hey, this is Ray again from down in Florida. To answer your question, would Donald Trump take a black guy in a sarcastic way? Only if it's Herschel Walker, that idiot he supported for senator.
You're probably right about that. Yeah, Herschel. Maybe AB, too. I don't know. Two people that can't put three sentences together at the same time.
Now, I played competition judo 50 years ago when I was younger. I'm 88 now. And you get a chokehold put on you once in a while.
Yeah.
Takes 1 second to tap out. You don't hold it on for 5 minutes. The guy's a bum.
I agree 100%. And before I let you go, what do you make of this school shooting, another school shooting, this time in Madison, Wisconsin? What are your thoughts on it?
Just too many shootings. I don't know. I don't have a comment on it. It's just terrible.
I agree.
It's a terrible thing in our life.
I agree. And as long as we have Republicans in powerful positions, it's only going to get worse, my friend. I appreciate your call, Ray. It's good to hear from you. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Patrick. Patrick is next up on PTL. Hello, Patrick.
Yeah, hello, Brian. You talked a little bit about Jordan Williams today. I just want to point out last week you were wrong when you said that Jordan Williams didn't have the knife, because it is true that Jordan Williams, I don't disagree with what he did, but he pulled the knife out of his pocket. And he stabbed the guy in the chest. not
that I am into getting into the weeds with you on the Jordan Williams case. I will do it for a few. I will do it. Excuse me. I'm responding. Excuse me, sir. I'm responding now. That means you be quiet. It's my show, not yours. Now I'm going to ask you the question about, because I'm not surprised you're off topic. Now, Jordan Williams did pull out a knife, but if you look at the actual why he defended himself, is because he pulled out a knife and the guy made physical contact with him and they got into a physical altercation. Now, I don't know about you, but if I have a gun or a knife and I say, hey, knock it off, stand back, and somebody makes physical contact with me, he is in the right to defend himself. So now I'm going to ask you a question, because today we're not going through the Jordan Williams case. Today, actually, because I'm not surprised you're off topic. So now I'm going to ask you a question, Patrick, and I think I know the way you're going to answer it because you don't have a genuine bone in your body, but I'll ask it anyway. Why hasn't Donald Trump invited Jordan Williams? Let me ask it like that. Why do you think Jordan Williams wasn't invited to a football game, but somehow Daniel Penny was? Can you explain to me why? Answer that question, please.
But we do agree last week you were wrong.
I'm asking you the question. I'm asking you a question, and if you're not going to answer it, I'm going to move on to the next caller, okay? Answer the question. Why is it that Donald Trump invited Daniel Penny to a football game, and I guarantee you Kyle Rittenhouse to the White House, and I'm sure Daniel Penny would be invited to the White House? Why is it that Jordan Williams wasn't invited to any Republican events? Why is it that Jordan Williams wasn't invited to a football game? Can you please answer that question? Now I'm asking for a second time.
Because Jordan Williams wasn't prosecuted for self-defense. Put on trial for self-defense.
Actually, Jordan Williams was arrested, and Jordan Williams was not convicted, just like the other case. So I'm asking you again, just like the other situation that we were talking about, Daniel Penny, they were both charged with crimes, but they are now free men. So I'm going to ask you the question now for a third time. Both were not convicted. I think some people in society would consider both of them to be heroes. So I'm going to ask you now for a third time, because your answer was pathetic. Why is it that Donald Trump has not invited Jordan Williams to a football game? Can you please explain why? I'm asking you now for a fourth time.
Again, you're wrong on this case. The grand jury.
I'm not asking you about, I am asking you a very simple question. And you're not answering it. You're avoiding it, as you do all the time. So I'm going to try to explain the question to you, because I think you're a little slow. It's okay, though. I'll explain it to you. You see, sir, you're the one that called into this show that compared the two cases. You're the one that said, well, wait, why was Jordan Williams let off? And why is it that people are calling Daniel Penny a murderer? They are both free men. Some would say Daniel Penny acted in heroic fashion. I disagree with that, but regardless, Jordan Williams was also seen by the same light in that subway. Many people called him a hero. So I'm trying to ask you the same question now for a fifth time. I haven't received an answer. You have Jordan Williams, who killed somebody on a subway, defending himself, defending his girlfriend, defending other people on that subway. You have Daniel Penny, that some would consider, like yourself, a hero, defending people on the subway. Donald Trump invites Daniel Penny to a football game. I'm now asking you for a sixth time. Why is it that Donald Trump has not invited Jordan Williams to a football game? Please answer the question.
Can I answer?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Answer,
I'm waiting. Yeah.
So you're wrong. The grand jury did not bring charges of
he was arrested.
Or murder charges.
He was arrested. He was put in handcuffs, and he was booked. We're getting into the weeds. Would you say Jordan Williams is a hero? Would you say Jordan Williams is a hero?
Are you going to let me speak? And
would you,
Brian?
Why
are you so?
Would you say, answer the question, is Jordan Williams a hero? Yes or no?
I have no problem with Jordan Williams.
Okay, thank you. We agree. Okay, is he a hero? Answer the question. You don't answer direct questions. I didn't ask if you had a problem with him. Answer the question. That's why I'm interrupting you. Is Jordan Williams a hero? Yes or no?
Jordan Williams was released without bond.
Plot him down again. I didn't ask you if he was released without bond. I'm now asking you another question that you're not answering. Is Jordan Williams a hero? Yes or no? Answer the question.
They weren't treated the same as what I'm
again. I didn't ask you if they were treated the same. I'm asking you a very basic question, and my MAGA friends that call into the show struggle answering a direct question. I'm not asking you about the case specifically. I'm not asking you about Daniel Penny in that case. I'm asking you a very simple question based on the evidence. The question is, and Patrick, I need you to focus, okay? Focus, Patrick. Is Jordan Williams a hero? Yes or no? I can't be more simple with you, Patrick. Yes or no?
Last week you were wrong about the knife.
Pot him down. The reason why Patrick won't answer the question because he's a racist. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so glad Patrick called in.
Patrick is your typical MAGA racist. You see, when it's a black man that virtually does the same thing that Daniel Penny does in some cases, Patrick will be the first person in line to call Daniel Penny a hero. Donald Trump will be the first person to call him a hero and invite him to a football game. But you see, this is such a great example of what I'm talking about. When I ask Patrick about Jordan Williams, notice how he won't answer the question? Because many of these white racist MAGA supporters refuse to call a black man a hero. He won't even say Jordan is a hero. He won't answer why Donald Trump won't invite Jordan Williams to a football game. Well, I'll answer the question for Patrick. First of all, yes, I do think Jordan Williams is a hero. That's number one. Number two, the reason why Donald Trump won't invite Jordan Williams is the same reason why you won't say Jordan Williams is a hero. The same reason. The reason why you won't call Jordan Williams a hero and the reason why Donald Trump won't invite Jordan Williams to a football game is because you're both bigoted racists. That's why. Have a nice day, you frickin' clown. Perfect example of what I am talking about. Won't call Jordan Williams a hero, but he'll say, well, I don't have a problem with Jordan Williams. Daniel Penny, hero. Ladies and gentlemen, the MAGA Republican Party in 2024. And guess what? Patrick just proved it to everybody listening. Won't call Jordan Williams a hero. Daniel Penny, he's a hero. Donald Trump won't invite Jordan Williams to a football game. Daniel Penny, probably get a spot in his administration. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you would like to be a part of the conversation. Let's see. Let's go to Shelley. Shelley is next up on PTL. Hey, Shelley, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. It's nothing but plain racist. That's it. They're all racist. Biggest one of all is Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. And about the school shooting.
Yeah.
This is a total disgrace. Again, over and over again, it happens over and over and over again. What does the Republican Party do? Nothing. They could care less if our kids or our grandkids get killed in school. Care less.
Mm-hmm.
They do not give a damn.
They'll say now is not the time to talk about gun control.
No.
They're more interested in talking about drag queen.
I'm sorry,
rating.
I've cursed on you.
No, you're fine, my dear. I know that this is emotional times for a lot of people. You just saw in real time the similarities between a MAGA supporter like Patrick and Donald Trump. Not willing to call Jordan Williams a hero. I asked him multiple times, but Daniel Penny, that guy's a hero. The racism is showed on this show. And I expose these people every day. I guarantee you Trump won't be inviting Jordan Williams to the White House. Kyle Rittenhouse, hero. Daniel Penny, hero. The McCloskeys, heroes. Jordan Williams, well, he's black. 702-221-7283. Dan is next on PTL. Hey, Dan, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind, man?
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, just wanted to say I totally agree with you. The people that the so-called Republican Party now stand for is just all hate. And I don't know if you noticed at the football game, what the hell is fucking Trump saluting during the national
Watch the language.
anthem?
Watch the language, but go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. As a veteran, he disgusts me.
Yeah.
And any other disabled veteran out there, you better just hope and pray you still have your disability after this administration's done. I'll let you go. I know you got lots of
Well, I
calls,
want to
brother.
ask you, hold on 1 second, my friend. By the way, thank you for your service. You're a true hero, and it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. You're a hero because you serve this country. I want to ask you a question. They're talking about major cutbacks for veterans like yourself. Major cuts. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah, it's spelled out in Project 2025. They're going after everything they can, not only disability, but for new veterans trying to get a claim. And then they always are pushing back certain disabilities. And
sure.
But I mean, who's the commander in chief of the army? Some guy that I have bone spurs 5. It's a disgrace. And this,
You're right. You're right. He'd call you a sucker and a loser.
He'd call you, Pete Hegseth, he'd call you a sucker and a loser. And if you're a POW, God forbid, he would say, I don't respect you because you were captured. Well, I'll always respect
he
people
was
like
standing
you.
right there.
Yep.
And as he saluted, and I'm like,
yeah, it's embarrassing. He puts on his 8 layers of orange makeup. He puts on his girdle. And the draft dodger himself, ladies and gentlemen, he could sue me for calling him a draft dodger. Guess what? His own doctor's family says he was faked the bone spur notes and all that. So I tend to believe them. Thank you for your service, sir, and I appreciate your call. Please call back anytime. 702-221-7283. Let's go to David. David is next up on PTL. What's up, David?
Hey, Brian. How you doing today?
Hey, what's up, man?
First and foremost, I agree with you on everything you were saying, and including with the school shooting. You know, the Republicans aren't going to do nothing. One thing I want to add, especially like what Mega Patrick calls and all them, I'm not sure if you caught it over the weekend, but did you hear the new thing Trump is going to make sure is one of the biggest things the Republican Party and MAGA Party are going to take care of?
I did not. What's that?
They're going to get rid of daylight savings time. We're not going to worry about school shootings. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to worry about daylight savings time because it costs us billions of dollars.
Why am I not surprised? Think about, David, think about what the Republicans are focused on today. Let's think about this for a moment. What are they always talking about? They're talking about drag queens. They're talking about trans surgery. They're talking about trans people in bathrooms. What are they not talking about? They're not talking about healthcare because when they're asked about it, they have no replacement plan. They have concepts of a plan. They're certainly, if they're talking about inflation, now that Donald Trump won re-election, Donald Trump's all of a sudden saying, well, it's not going to be so easy to drop down those prices. They're certainly not talking about abortion. That scares them now because in half the country, it's illegal for most women to get an abortion. They're not talking about any of the important issues that are facing Americans today, right? They're talking about banning books. They're talking about trans people in bathrooms, right? And after a school shooting where several people lose their lives, young children in this school running for their lives, at best case scenario, they will be tweeting out thoughts and prayers. I went to Nancy Mace's page. The last tweet that she had up when I checked before I went on the air an hour ago was not about any school shootings. It was going after trans people. That's what these Republicans stand for right now. It is abundantly clear. Just look at their actions and look at their behavior. They don't talk about the important issues that actually affect Americans. And you wait 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, when Donald Trump once again gives the top tax breaks to the top 1% in this country, and we'll see where the economy is at, and people will regret their vote. And I'll just sit back and watch because that's all we can do, my friend.
Absolutely. But I just wanted to give you that one, too, because I heard that when I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The amount of money was going to cost on
It's
these
insane.
stupid things.
Yeah, it's insane, my friend. I appreciate your phone call. You're right. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Colin. Colin is next up on PTL. Hey, Colin, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian. I heard what that last call was saying. That get rid of daylight savings time.
Yeah,
that's going to screw over the farmers.
It'll screw over a lot of people. I agree with you, but this is what they're focused on, and he's right. By the way, I've heard that as well.
And also, I've heard about the book, Fahrenheit 41, and like some of the stuff that they do in that book is kind of like not similar, but about like the book banning and like the burning of books.
Oh, it's insane, right? Colin, let me ask you a question. If Daniel Penny was black and the victim was white, you think Donald Trump would be inviting a black Daniel Penny to a football game?
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with you. It's interesting because the Kyle Rittenhouses of the world will be wined and dined. Think about who Donald Trump invited to dinner. Can you imagine if Nick Fuentes was invited to the White House for a dinner with Joe Biden, what the Republicans would say about that? Donald Trump invited Kanye West the week when Kanye West was praising Adolf Hitler, by the way. And Nick Fuentes, he wined and dined a known Nazi, a Nazi sympathizer, to the White House for dinner. And it's amazing how that story just kind of goes away. What would happen if Joe Biden did that? Like, for example, if Joe Biden invited like David Duke to the White House and wined and dined him, and then afterwards was asked about it, and Joe Biden said, oh, I really didn't know who David Duke was, because that was Donald Trump's excuse. He didn't know who Nick Fuentes was. Can you imagine
what Republicans would be saying. And trust
There'd
me,
be outrage.
yeah, of course there would. Of course, I agree. You know, Daniel Penny, I told you guys this was going to happen. I said Daniel Penny is going to be a superstar within the Republican Party. And what happened? Literally 24 hours later, 48 hours later, he's inviting Daniel Penny to a football game. These Republicans are so predictable. They're so predictable, my friend. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Jason. Jason is next on PTL. What's up, Jason?
Okay, Brian, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Here we go. Number one, you forgot George Zimmerman. They made him a hero as well. So there goes that point. More than anything, I've been telling you before Donald Trump got in office, I told you they were going to try to bring 1861 back. So if you think about it, after Penny, you're trying to tell me the black and the brown population is not on high alert, especially for deportation, and now Trump invites Penny to a football game, the Army-Navy game to be exact, and now I'll do the equivalent. Imagine, because you know it's in Washington, and not that far away is a lot of bad neighborhoods in Washington. Could you imagine a black young man getting an AR-15 and running during January 6th and shooting everybody?
Well, let me
down
respond
there?
to that. Hold on, Jason. Let me respond to that. Let's be very clear, and I think you're going to agree with me on this. If Kyle Rittenhouse was black, he would have been shot, okay? If Kyle Rittenhouse was black, he would not have been walking down that street with his hands up, and the cops wouldn't have arrested. They didn't arrest him. If Kyle Rittenhouse was black, one of two things would happen: either he'd be dead, he would have been shot, or he'd be in jail right now. Would you agree with that?
100%. But I'm just also saying, imagine a black kid being on the internet saying, I can't wait to go January 6th because I feel like I'm going to kill somebody.
Right.
Because Trump was announcing it's going to be wild. So imagine a young black kid saying, oh, I can't, it's going to be wild. I feel like I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And go to January 6th while people are protesting and start gunning people down. What would happen to that kid? That's all I'm saying.
It's a very, very good point that you make, Jason, and I completely agree with you. And it goes back to what I've been saying all along. If Daniel Penny was black, this whole situation would have gone down very differently. I can tell you right now, Donald Trump would not have invited him to a football game. But within the extremes of the Republican Party today, if you are white, if you are a Kyle Rittenhouse or a Daniel Penny or the McCloskeys, you're looked at in some aspects of the far right as some sort of hero. Kyle Rittenhouse is the furthest thing from a hero. I don't believe Daniel Penny is a hero. The McCloskeys are certainly not heroes. There are some within the Republican Party that still believe Derek Chauvin did nothing wrong. There were those on television that said Derek Chauvin is a great cop. By the way, he's a convicted murderer, just to be clear on that. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Mark. I believe Mark is next up on PTL. Hey, Mark, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian. Good afternoon. For the second time, it's not MAGA Patrick, it's MAGA Patricia. So let's get that right. Everyone in the chat on YouTube, it's MAGA Patricia. Now, do you know who the only guy that they're not claiming is a hero?
Who's that?
Is the one that killed the CEO of United Healthcare. It's because he killed one of their own.
Yeah.
That's the only one they're not claiming is a hero.
Right.
As far as the school shooting, let's all congratulate Ron Johnson. He was the very first senator to come onto Facebook and make a post stating thoughts and prayers.
Yep. What a shocker.
Let's all give a big round of applause to Ron Johnson. And I posted in the YouTube chat that as long as a Republican is alive and is in power in Congress or the Senate, this will continue forever. It is never going to end until the Democrats get full power in all three branches, if there's any left after the next election.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we can possibly see a ban on, like some clowns in the chat that says explain an automatic weapon. automatic weapons.
Let me tell you.
Because let's remember this, Brian. The Second Amendment was written when
muskets
soldiers were using muskets.
Hey, Mark, I'll even go better. Okay, when a moron, and that's what somebody is that makes a statement like that, wants to get into the weeds with you on what an assault weapon is, I look them in the face and I say, okay, tell me what we should do. We have more gun violence in this country than almost any other country in the world.
Correct.
So instead of getting into the weeds with me on what an assault weapon is, I want to know what your solutions are. And they'll look at you and they'll give you a stare and they won't have any solutions. Or some of the
there is no
right. Or some of the dummies, some of the dummies out there will say more guns make us safer. So I'm not interested in getting into what is or what isn't an assault weapon. What I'm interested in is solutions.
But right, one more thing. You know what they're really interested in? Who the shooter is.
Right.
So they could put blame on that party.
They're doing it today, Mark.
Right.
Mark, they're doing it today. I've seen people on social media saying it must be a liberal, it must be a Democrat, it must be a trans shooter. These people are morons. They're morons. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Matt. Matt is next up on PTL. Hello, Matt. What's going on, man?
Hey, Brian.
What's up, Matt? What's on your mind?
I can almost guarantee you that Daniel Penny was invited to the game partly because of the way he looks and how he would appear in front of the camera.
Agree. I don't disagree with you at all. Explain further. Go ahead.
Trump loves people that look good, like Fox News hosts.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's more than just looking good. I think it's the color of your skin. Because,
That's true too,
we can always go back to Kimberly Guilfoyle, and, so we don't need to go there. But you're right. So obviously you agree with me then that if Daniel Penny was black, it would not have gone down the same way. The case probably wouldn't have gone down the same way. And he certainly would have been invited to the White House. Invited to a football game. You would agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Trump's a racist.
Well, I agree. I think it's pretty clear when you say that you don't want black people counting your money in casinos, but you want Jews counting your money. My black friend, look at his cabinet. Look at his cabinet back in 2016. Look at his cabinet now. It's a joke. That's why I would ask these blacks for Trump, the blacks for Trump people. I would say, why didn't he hire Ben Carson? I'm just curious. Byron Donalds. Why didn't he hire these people? Why didn't he hire Tim Scott? I think there's a pretty simple and fair explanation for this. They're black. That's my personal opinion, my friend. I appreciate your call. Thank you. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Bev. Bev is next up on PTL. What's up, Bev?
Oh, hey. How you doing, Brian?
Hey, good, Bev. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to say quickly that no, if the black subway killer would not be invited anywhere with Trump.
Yeah.
Yep. But Rittenhouse, I'm very puzzled as to why his mother was never charged with anything like taking him across state borders when he's 17
with a gun, dressed up in camouflage. Yeah.
He shouldn't have one of those guns. Like why she wasn't charged with something? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, the problem is it's circumstantial. They could make the argument that she didn't really know what he was doing. Obviously, that would be a lie. I agree with you. Listen, I think of Kyle Rittenhouse very similarly to a George Zimmerman, very similarly to in this aspect, right? George Zimmerman was looking to go after a black person, okay? He stereotyped Trayvon Martin, who did absolutely nothing wrong, by the way, and he followed Trayvon Martin, who was doing nothing wrong.
He was walking home with soda or something.
And Skittles, right. Kyle Rittenhouse was dreaming. How do we know this? Because he said it. He was dreaming a week before of shooting people for shoplifting. Let's go back to when we were 17 or today. When we hear about somebody shoplifting, or let's just say we're in a convenience store and somebody steals some beer or gum or whatever, a normal human being would say, geez, what a scumbag. I hope they catch him and I hope they arrest him. I think that would be a normal thing to say. Is it normal?
I want to shoot them.
That was where I was going. Is it a normal reaction when somebody shoplifts something to say, boy, I'd love to shoot that person? Why is this important? Because that was Kyle Rittenhouse's thinking process. He wasn't thinking, boy, I can't wait to go to that Black Lives Matter protest to save people or help people. No, he dressed up in camouflage with an AR-15 because he was dreaming about shooting people. And sadly, he got his wish.
Yeah. But there's no way his mother didn't know, because he either had the gun on his lap when he hopped out of the car, or he said, wait a minute, Mom, I got to get this out of the back.
You are correct. I agree with you 150%. Let me tell you something when it comes back to Daniel Penny. The father of Jordan Neely has sued Daniel Penny. I hope they take every dollar from Daniel Penny, and every single dollar that's donated to Daniel Penny by these MAGA buffoon racists. I hope that they take every single dollar and it goes to the Jordan Neely family. Every single dollar. Get this guy for everything. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Q. I believe Q is next up on PTL. What's up, Q?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, good. What's on your mind, Q?
Oh, wow, man. Listen, first of all, first-time caller, and I happened to run across your show this morning. Of course, I subscribed, and I gave a thumbs up.
Thank you.
I love intelligent conversation. I'm a communicator, and people don't get it. We can disagree, but let's be civil about it.
Sure.
The Daniel Penny thing, man, it's retarded, man. It's the haves versus the have-nots. Like you, I was just listening to the lady before said that the mother really should have been held accountable for Kyle Rittenhouse, because he was 17. One, he crossed state lines with an AR-15. Two, you have to be at least 18 years old to get one of those. I'm a retired military man. I know what an AR-15 is designed for.
Why would you bring that to a protest? That's not built to defend yourself. It's built to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time. Am I right?
You're absolutely correct. Well, you bring that to a protest, man, because you're
looking for trouble.
You're overcompensating for lack thereof. Kyle Rittenhouse was probably some little punk boy pushed around as a child, and now you gotta. I'm gonna show I'm a big manly dude, right?
Let me ask you a question, Q. Can I ask you a question, if I may? Why is it you think, if you don't mind me asking, what is your race? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm a brother, homie. You know.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure. I don't want to assume. Okay. So let me ask you this question, Q. Why is it you think that Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans look up to the Kyle Rittenhouses of the world and the Daniel Pennys of the world and the McCloskeys as heroes? They have them speak at the RNC convention. They invite them to football games. Why is it you think that the Republican Party look up to these people as heroes?
Because they're weak-minded and they think that the strength comes from the what's the word I'm looking? Entitlement thereof, just for being white, brother. I'm white, you're black, you're nothing. I'm white, you're Spanish, you're nothing. I'm white, you're Arab, you're nothing. And the one thing that a white man hates more than a black man with a nickel is a white man with a penny. At the end of the day, bro, they try this thing and they think they're equal, and they're not, because the bottom line is these minions that fall in line and think that something's really going to happen for them. I feel sorry for them, because I'm in the same tax bracket as a lot of people at the bottom tier. And what's going to happen to me as being a black man, my whole life and my whole community, we can survive. We eat chitlins.
Right.
You know, we eat chitlins. It doesn't matter to us what the grocery prices are, whatever. We're going to make a way to eat.
Sure.
Entitled, privileged, so-called privileged people, they think that the people at the top are looking out for them when they just use them.
Well, they're not. They're not, Q. They're not. Listen, Donald Trump had the highest tax breaks for the top 1% in decades. They're not out for you. They're not out for me. They're out for themselves. Donald Trump is out for his billionaire friends, many of them who happen to be white, by the way. If you just go to Mar-a-Lago, take a look at the diversity there. There is none. Just like when you go to a Donald Trump rally. No diversity at all. They're all Daniel Pennys. 702-221-7283, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Spice. Spice is next up on PTL. What's going on, Spice?
Hey, it's my second time calling.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for keeping us up to date on the things that's going around the world.
Sure.
Also, a shout out to President Biden. He brought down the gas. I'm paying $2.53 a gallon. That being said,
Oh, but Trump will take credit for that. I guarantee you.
Oh, absolutely. That being said, on the gun thing,
yep.
I don't think a lot of your gun nut fanatic people know that the AR-15 was actually designed by Mantel for G.I. Joe.
Right.
And then the Army looked at it and said, hey, I like that idea. So they bought the blueprints or whatever, the patent from Mantel, made it into the weapon for war. It wasn't strong enough, and so they went to the M16. So anybody that says the AR-15 is not a military-type weapon is full of bullshit. Sorry, full of
crap. Yeah,
their eyes are brown.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with you at all, and I think that when they want to talk about the Constitution and they want to talk about the right to bear arms, what they fail to mention is that back when the Constitution was written, we had something called muskets. We didn't have AR-15s. It's supposed to be a well-regulated militia. Are we saying that we're well-regulated right now when an 18-year-old could walk right into a gun store and purchase thousands of rounds of ammunition with zero training? We don't have comprehensive background checks across the country. It's a joke. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you do want to be a part of the conversation. Just to recap what we're doing today, we're talking about a number of different topics. Including, of course, the breaking news, which I will share for you if you're just joining us. And it is tragic. Several people have lost their lives in a deadly school shooting at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. Law enforcement say the shooter, believed to be a juvenile, and authorities are still investigating the scene. Motive unknown at this point, but it is an awful situation at a K-12 school that has 390 students. The Republicans, like the Ron Johnsons of the world, are saying thoughts and prayers, like they always do. Thoughts and prayers, but they have no answers. They have no answers for the American people. None. Zero. 702-221-7283, the number to call if you do want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Lauren. Lauren is next up on PTL. Hello, Lauren.
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
What's up, Lauren? How you doing? What's on your mind today?
Well, I mean, I just heard the conversation, or I guess Rittenhouse has been brought up several times this afternoon.
Yep.
Actually, his father lived in Kenosha, which is where he picked his weapon up at. It wasn't transported by his mother.
Which to me is still irrelevant. He should have never been there with an AR-15 at the age of 17 dressed up in camouflage.
Okay.
Are you okay with him in his behavior that day? Do you think that was proper for his mother to send him to a very violent and dangerous Black Lives Matter protest dressed up in camouflage by himself at 17?
You
think that's a good choice?
As I understand it, in the interviews that I've heard, he was going to over to help someone protect a car lot or something.
No, you're wrong, because they were actually interviewed and they did not know who Kyle Rittenhouse was, and that was actually investigated. I'm
going by the interview with Rittenhouse.
Okay, well, I'm not going by an interview with Rittenhouse. I'm going by the actual court case that took place, and I know he was found not guilty, Lauren, but there was no personal connection between any local business and Kyle Rittenhouse. But I'm still asking you. I'm still asking you the same question. I do think, Lauren, it's an important one. Are you defending his behavior that day, and you think 17?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, I appreciate your honesty. By the way, I've never called Kyle Rittenhouse a murderer. I've called him an idiot, but I don't think he's a murderer. But here's my point, Lauren, and you can tell me what you think about this. Do you think that people should look up to Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero, and he should be paid money to make speeches? Because that's what Turning Point USA is doing. That's what Charlie Kirk has been doing.
I think that's what every party does.
Okay, give me an example of the Democrats. Give me an example of the Democrats paying somebody that did what Kyle Rittenhouse did. Give me some sort of example.
No, I'm not going to say that in this particular instance. I'm saying that both parties are guilty.
So give me an example if you're saying both parties are guilty. I don't think that's a hard question, Lauren. You're claiming the Democrats.
I called in to talk about Rittenhouse.
Okay, but hold on.
I'm not.
I'll give you the opportunity.
All right,
hold on, Lauren. I promise I'll give you the opportunity to do that. But you just made a claim, and I think it's very fair as the host to say, give me one example. You just said the Democrats do the exact same thing that the Republicans do in this aspect. Kyle Rittenhouse, who's a moron, and they pay him to make speeches across the country. And with respect, I'm asking you, when you make a statement like that, which I disagree with, but I'm giving you the opportunity to explain yourself, can you give me an example in the last several years of the Democrat Party putting somebody on a pedestal that's
I
a
just
moron?
said that I couldn't do that.
So why would you make that statement if you can't give me one example then?
Well, what? All right, fine. Every year we have what the president gives the State of the Nation.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Every year, depending on which party is in, they always have people up in the gallery, in the upper part of the gallery, usually where the first lady is sitting,
right?
And they point out people that have
yeah.
done
You know who Joe
things.
Biden did? Joe Biden pointed out heroes, parents who lost loved ones in school shootings. You know who Donald Trump did that with? Rush Limbaugh, the guy who called Barack Obama a Negro on the air and spread bigotry every day. So with all due respect, Lauren, I was
not a Rush Limbaugh fan either.
I'm not
so.
saying you were, Lauren. All I'm simply saying is I disagree with your comparison.
Well, then why'd you bring him up?
Because you just brought up the State of the Union address and who they honor. And I'm telling you that during that, Donald Trump honored and gave a medal to Rush Limbaugh. Joe Biden decided to give medals and honored people that risked their life for this country that lost limbs and parents that lost loved ones. So with all due respect, there is no comparison. You're trying to make a comparison between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party when it comes to somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse. I've given you the opportunity to give me an example, and you can't name me one, so don't make the comparison.
I told you that from the beginning that I had called in about Rittenhouse.
But
so,
you're the one who made the claim that both parties they both do the same
and
thing.
I gave you an example of it.
Of who? I'm sorry, repeat. I didn't hear.
I gave you an example of what takes place with both parties.
And give me an example. I didn't hear an example.
I did give you the example.
Be specific. I gave you Kyle Rittenhouse. Give me a name. Give me an example.
I can't give you a specific name. I can give you instances of what I see every year when the president goes before the Congress.
Yeah.
And gives the State of the Nation.
And who did he honor? Who did Joe Biden honor that you disagree with, that you thought was in poor taste?
Jesus.
What do you mean?
I'm not saying that I disagree.
Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay, but Lauren,
I'm not.
Lauren, here's why I'm asking you this, okay? Kyle Rittenhouse, I think we could agree on this. I hope we could. Kyle Rittenhouse is an idiot. He should have never been there that day. He put himself in harm's way. It was
I agree.
Okay, we agree. Let's start there. We agree on that. Great. The Republican Party, many in the party have paid him. He signed a book deal. Turning Point pays him to make speeches, and he's seen as a hero. Donald Trump invited him to the White House. You just said, and I think you're wrong, you're entitled to your opinion, you said the left does it as well. I'm just asking I can give you a ton of examples of Republicans honoring idiots.
I'm sure you can because you have a tremendous dislike for MAGA people.
I have a tremendous dislike for anybody, left or right, who praises somebody.
Brian, I can't think of anything, and I've listened to you for many years.
Lauren, I need you to listen. Lauren, I need you to listen to me. This is important.
Talk to me like.
Then you're off my show. I'll talk to you any way I want to, and there's nothing you can do. But I'm sorry I've embarrassed you. You can't give one example, but you make a blatant statement. Lauren, let me repeat myself once again. I have a dislike for anybody that praises somebody like a Kyle Rittenhouse. I have a dislike for anybody that would praise somebody for putting a black man in a chokehold for 6 minutes, even after he was unconscious. I have a dislike for anybody that would call the McCloskeys heroes for pointing guns at a bunch of black people at a Black Lives Matter protest. I have a disdain or dislike for anybody that puts those kinds of people on a pedestal. Now, you're the one who said it happens on the left and the right. I asked you for one example. You weren't able to come up with one because you just say things with no facts to back up your opinions. You even brought up the State of the Union address. And I correctly pointed out that Joe Biden has honored brave men and women in military. He's given them awards. He's honored parents that have lost loved ones. Fred Gutenberg is a personal friend of mine. At the State of the Union, Joe Biden had him stand up, praised him and others. I gave you specific examples of the types of people that the left and Joe Biden honors. And then, since you brought up the State of the Union, I brought up Donald Trump. He honored Rush Limbaugh, the slob and the racist bigot who was a cancer to society. He was not only cancer cost him his life,
He was a cancer to society. He called Barack Obama a Negro on the air. He called Sandra Fluke a whore because she wanted her health care to provide her services when it came to contraceptives. Donald Trump gave an award to Rush Limbaugh. You brought up the State of the Union. I destroyed your point. You couldn't give me one example of somebody on the left having somebody speak at the Democrat National Convention. So I'm going to give you another example, and now I'm going to ask you a question. At the Republican National Convention, Lauren, and you're still on the line, Lauren, at the Republican National Convention, they had a wife beater speak. His name is Dana White, who smacked his wife in public. They had Hulk Hogan speak, who openly said on audio that he hates black people. They had Kid Rock performing, who uses homophobic slurs at his concerts. Can you give me an example of anybody who spoke at the Democrat National Convention who struck women in this last DNC, who's openly a bigoted racist, or uses homophobic slurs? Lauren, I'm asking you to give me one example of something you saw in somebody that spoke or performed at the DNC. Can you please do that for me, Lauren, as we bring you back up? Go right ahead. Lauren hung up the phone. Too bad, Lauren. Too bad, Lauren. You hung up the phone. I didn't want you to hang up, Lauren. I wanted to keep you on the line, but that's okay, Lauren, because Lauren wouldn't be able to answer that question either. 702-221-7283, the number to call. Let's go to Big Papa. Big Papa is next up on PTL. What's going on, man?
Hi, Brian. I'm actually a female. I've been following you since you were on the Don Lemon show. And I just wanted to agree with you and agree with the brother that called in earlier that America, you all need to realize that y'all are racist and that y'all are misogynist. At the end of the day, if a black man was to do anything that Donald Trump is doing right now, he would be in prison. Look at P. Diddy. Look at R. Kelly. All of them, they are in jail waiting.
Can we let me ask you about that. There are morons on social media that are saying, Brian, your buddy P. Diddy, first of all, I hope P. Diddy gets the electric chair, number one. Number two, I've never defended him. I've always thought he was a scumbag. And I believe he had something to do with B.I.G.'s death. I really do. I think he's a horrible person. I believe he's a murderer, not only a rapist. And you can't find me one prominent Democrat that is defending P. Diddy right now. But basically, the entire Republican Party is defending Donald Trump, a 34-count felon and an adjudicated rapist.
Yes, sir. I just want to tell you, Ryan, keep your foot on their necks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Thank you. A Don Lemon fan. I like that. Don's a great guy. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Darlene. Darlene is next up on PTL. Hey, Darlene, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. First of all, I want to send my condolences to all the victims that the kids got killed today and everything. That's number one. But I wanted to listen to this, Brian. I don't know if you know this, but back in July of this year, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Texas, we now have ammunition in vending machines in grocery stores. What do you think about that?
I think it's despicable. But you know what it comes down to, Darlene? Profits, money. That's all it ever comes down to. It's about money.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the movie. I thought it was a great documentary, Bowling for Columbine. And I remember it was a very emotional moment where I think they went to like a Target type store. I don't remember whether it was Target or not. It was one of those stores where they were selling a lot of ammunition. And because Michael Moore and some victims that were shot in the Columbine shooting showed up and gave it to the PR of that company, they decided to get rid of all their rounds of ammunition. And it was a really emotional moment in the movie. It was a great documentary. Michael Moore's a great filmmaker, a great documentary filmmaker. And I feel like that's what's going to be needed to be done here. You know, when you find those kinds of stores that are making it just so easy and accessible
for 18-year-olds to walk in there and buy a bunch of ammunition. I think it's
Oh,
very, very
you
dangerous.
have to be 21. It says 21, but it's in grocery stores.
It's sick. I mean,
think about that.
You go in there and you get your groceries and your beverages and your meat and whatever else you get in there, and then look, there's some ammunition. Let me buy a couple thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Exactly.
Darlene, it's sick. It's sick where we're at in this country right now. These people are sick. And this Christian school, and of course my heart goes out to everyone that's been affected. And by the way, everybody. It's not just people who lost their lives, children and the family. Everybody. If you're a child and you're running from a gunman and you survive, you don't think that's going to affect you the rest of your life? Everybody is affected there. And it's so sad that with these Republicans, you hear them talking more about banning books. Think about that. MAGA Republicans today. And yes, Lauren is correct. The one thing he said in that phone call that was correct is that I have a major dislike for MAGA Republicans. Lauren, you are 150% correct. I do. And I stand by it because I think many of these MAGA Republicans are dirtbags. That's what I think. 702-221-7283. Jeff is next. Hey, Jeff, thanks for calling in, man. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. What's up? Couple things. Lauren, classic. Both sides in the Rittenhouse issue, but can't present even one example to support his false equivalency.
Jeff, I think I got him. I think I got him.
You did, but it's just like, it's so ridiculous. He's got nothing, and then he gets flustered, and it's pathetic.
Yeah.
But a few callers back, I think his name was Jason.
Yeah.
He said it's like we're going back to 1861. And I've been thinking this for a while. When Trump was comparing himself to Abraham Lincoln and saying he is doing more for black people than anyone except perhaps Lincoln.
Yeah.
Trump has also said that he would have negotiated a better deal to end the Civil War. So if anyone thinks he's not going to make racism an expansive policy effort of this administration, wake up.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people are still asleep. I think they're very complicit. They've got the blinders on. They think Donald Trump is going to solve all their problems. Well, Jeff, you know what? We'll just wait and see, my friend. We'll just sit back and wait and see.
We got to sit back and watch.
Yeah, let Donald Trump handle all the problems all over the world, including in this country. He's going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. The Middle East, he's going to have peace in the Middle East. Okay, we'll find out about that. Thanks for the call, Jeff. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. One phone line open. You know, it is funny, like, I occasionally when I'm driving in my car, it's very rare, but I'll put on some of these like local talk shows. They're all conservatives, by the way. And they beg for phone calls. The phone lines are open, they'll say every other word. The phone, I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing. We're trying to get more phone lines here. The phone lines are always full here. 99% of the time. I think my producer can attest to that. The phone lines are just about always full. And I get text messages and social media people, hey man, I've been trying to get through for weeks. I can't get through. And I'm very appreciative of all of you for being interactive. I've always said that this is going to be the most interactive show. I'll take phone calls pretty much every day because I love hearing from all of you, even my MAGA friends that call into the show like MAGA Patricia. I'll always do that. And I always appreciate hearing from you. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Samuel. Samuel's next up on PTL. Hey, what's going on?
Anonymous, man. Thanks for having me. I watched your show quite a few times. I've never called in, but I always wanted to call in. And first of all, let me congratulate you for this show.
Thank you.
I think you're fair in your comments. I don't see you being biased. You say something and you're willing to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just calling, whatever happened today with that shooting again, it's very disturbing. This is... this country has the most shootings at school kids and what's not.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the solution, but I'm very upset, and I think that unless those being shot, the last name is Rubio or Trump or Hurley or DeSantis or Cruz.
Yep.
Unless those get shot, this would never change.
The entire Republican, I agree with what you just said. The entire Republican Party is like that, in my opinion. For example, I'm going to bring up the Cheneys for a moment, if I may. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, who I disagree with on almost every policy decision, For most of their lives in public office, they were very anti-gay. They were very anti-gay marriage until they found out that one of their family members was gay. That's right. Liz's sister, Dick Cheney's daughter, is gay. And then all of a sudden, they changed their tune. Why is it that with these Republicans, unless it happens to you where you have somebody gay in your family, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with, unless something happens to you, they don't act upon anything and they don't do the right thing. I find that extremely problematic.
Yeah. And one more thing. And I've heard you said quite a few times that black folks, I'm black, are treated differently from white folks. No, I'm an immigrant in this country. I came here in 2001. 2002, those were the days when you didn't have GPS and whatnot. You go on print out your whatever.
Yeah.
So my wife was in the car. There's a baby in the car. My baby. I stopped. I saw a white cop. I stopped. I wanted to ask him for directions. So I went up to him. The guy pulled his gun on me.
Oh, my.
And said to me, "You don't walk up to a cop like this." So I just put up my hands and I went back to my car.
Yeah.
Had that been a white family, a white dude with a wife and a white baby in the car, that would have never happened.
I agree.
This has been my experience.
I am so sorry that happened to you. That would be the first thing I would say.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I would say is I think you're 150% correct. Unless somebody's walked in your shoes or unless somebody actually takes the time to listen to you, they're not going to understand because they're caught up in their own lives with white privilege and they don't understand what it's like to be living in somebody like you, your shoes. That's why I always want to listen to people like you and I always want to learn. You think those on the far right want to learn from people like you? No, of course not. That's what Make America Great Again stands for. It's Make America White Again. Thank you for the call, my friend. And I am so glad you are in this country. And we have good people in this country, immigrants that come into this country like yourself. That's the way I want it to be. And I appreciate you. 702-221-7283. Joe is next, I believe, right? Let's go to Joe. Hey, Joe, thanks for calling in, my man. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, I've been listening to you for a while. It's just picked you up on YouTube out of nowhere. I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
I got two things.
Sure.
One, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. So my boss actually was on the jury, and he came back to work and told us that he could not convict. He just couldn't find his heart to convict his kid because he saw this idiot crying on the stand. I was like, what did that have to do with him killing two people? But the whole, I live in Kenosha actually. The whole jury was filled with people like that. They just didn't see anything but, I'm not trying to be racist, but a white kid crying on the stand. That's pretty much all they saw. And it's pretty sad. A week after a black kid got killed, shot in his face by a cop for riding on the bike. He was just riding on his bike, and the cop thought he was somebody else and shot him. And I didn't hear them say one word about it. It just passed over for them. They just didn't care.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say to that. At a minimum, Kyle Rittenhouse should have never been there. He should have never been there. But here's everything you need to know about that case in a nutshell, right? And I talk about this all the time because to me it was the most important part of evidence in the case that was not admissible in court because you had a judge that was also a moron. The judge did not allow a week prior to Kyle Rittenhouse in that shooting, a week prior, he's literally caught on video saying he was dreaming about he wishes he could shoot people that were shoplifting. That was the case right there because it shows you his mindset. He was there because he wanted to kill people, in my personal opinion. Now, Daniel Penny case, very different, right? I'm willing to believe that Daniel Penny was not on that subway because he wanted to harm anybody. I'm willing to believe that Daniel Penny didn't even want to kill the individual. However, Daniel Penny kept this guy in a chokehold after he was unconscious. So if the argument from the defense is, well, he was trying to save the lives of all the people that were on the subway, then my question is, then why is it when all those people left the subway, he kept him in a chokehold? It totally diminishes their argument. Now, I understand the jury decided not guilty. I'm still going to say Daniel Penny, idiot. I'm still going to say Kyle Rittenhouse, idiot. What bothers me more, okay, they're free men. They're going to be rewarded for their idiocy. Daniel Penny just got, invited to a football game with the president, with the former president-elect. Kyle Rittenhouse has been rewarded with a book deal. He's been paid by Turning Point USA. The Republican Party rewards people for acting I'm not even going to say criminal, just acting in a horrible way when it comes to, in this case, a minority in the Daniel Penny case.
Yeah, I don't understand their fascination with murderers at all, or people that just have nothing to do. Like, Kyle Rittenhouse has a book deal. You hear him talk in person, he's literally probably the dumbest person I've ever heard speak in my life,
and it's
honestly.
I agree with you. Boy, I'd love to get your boss on the show, and I would love to pick his brain, my friend, but I appreciate your call. It's so interesting because there are some buffoons out there on social media that are saying jealous much. Like I saw one comment. Let me be very clear. When I watch an NBA basketball game, I'm very jealous at their athleticism, right? When I watch a guy like an Elton John perform in the past, I'm very jealous because he's such an incredible talent, right? I can only dream of having a talent like that. The last person that I am jealous of is a white supremacist sympathizer like Kyle Rittenhouse, who was only known for acting like a moron and 2 people killed in a third shot. The last person I'm jealous of is a guy like a Kyle Rittenhouse, because his entire life will be defined by him going to a Black Lives Matter protest dressed up in camouflage with an AR-15. Now, I'm jealous of talented people, intelligent people that have tremendous skills that I will never have. Those are the people that I'm jealous of. So I just want to be clear for some of you MAGA morons out there. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's see here. Who do we have next here? Ish is next up on PTL. What's up, Ish? You're on next. Go ahead.
Hey, Brian. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm a new fan.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Do you mind if I just ask you? I'm from West Texas, right? There's a lot of Latinos for Trump out here. Why do they think that nothing's going to happen to them when Trump gets in office and they try to implement some sort of deportation on a larger scale?
That's a really good question. And I would tell you because many of them are extremely ill-informed. They vote against their interest. And here's the problem. And I'm going to bring up the media. And it's interesting because Donald Trump calls CNN fake news and MSNBC. If you watch at all, it's excruciating. But if you watch Fox News after 5 p.m. or Newsmax or OAN, these are not news networks, okay? Fox Noise is not a news network, but if you watch it, and that's the only place where you get your source of information, you're gonna believe the opposite of what is the truth in most circumstances. Like, for example, the Dominion voting machines were responsible for the 2020 election being stolen, or, Donald Trump really isn't going to deport you. Everything's going to be just fine. He only is going to go after the really serious criminals. They believe that stuff. They believe it. So that's the best way I can answer that. Now, some of it, I'll be honest with you, people are brainwashed. Some of them are not very intelligent, and many of them are just ill-informed people. Doesn't mean they're bad people. They're ill-informed, and they're brainwashed. That's the best way I can answer.
Yes. Also, Brian, I happen to be a part of the LGBTQ community, so there's a lot of my friends who really don't think that they're not going to set aside some money to do some things about the rights that we have now and make them unavailable in the soon future.
Yep.
And I know he's going to.
Sure.
They're already not big fans of us. Conservatives are not big fans of us in general.
Yeah. Oh, ain't that a fact? First of all, the Republican Party has been anti-gay for decades. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just start with gay marriage. Democrats, I can't think of one Democrat in office that's anti-gay marriage. Okay. They have the attitude that I have, which is live your life, be happy. I don't care who you marry as long as it's legal, and live your life and be happy. And I don't care what your sexuality is. You're a human being. Be happy. Marry who you want. Be happy. But the Republican Party has been anti-gay marriage. They're anti-gay Pride Month. I'm speaking in general terms here. They're anti-trans. They're anti-gay. And it is interesting because you look at somebody like a Pete Buttigieg, who I think is an extremely intelligent person, and I think he could be a great president one day. But when you look at the memes and the jokes and the attacks, it's not because of the things he says. It's not because of policy making. It's because he's gay. That's where this hatred and bigotry. Here's an intelligent man. Nobody gave him anything. He got his degree. He's extremely talented. He's well-spoken. He goes on Fox News. He'll go anywhere. And the right-wingers out there, the MAGA bigots, go after him because he's gay. So I think I told this story on the air last week, and I'll share it again. I used to work with somebody in Las Vegas who used to be a conservative talk show host. This person I always felt was despicable and bigoted in nature. And I worked for some very bad people years ago, and they hired this person. This person went on the air and said that she didn't believe that a gay couple is as capable of raising a child as a straight couple. Now, she got fired for making those statements, but I thought to myself, how stupid of a person do you have to be? Because it comes down to stupidity. How dumb of a person do you have to be to think that because your sexuality might be different, you're not as capable of raising a child properly? But a lot of Republicans think like that, my friend. And I say, if you're gay, how can you vote Republican? I don't understand it. If you're in the military, if you're a service member, former military, how can you vote for Donald Trump? If you're a woman, how could you vote for Donald? Listen, I can go down the list, my man. I can go down the list. But there's no question that the party that is more pro-LGBTQ community, the party that wants you to live your life and be happy, it ain't the Republican Party.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, and one last thing, if I could say, because, slowly Donald Trump is actually admitting to people that he's not going to be able to affect anything that he said he was going to, talking about the grocery prices more specifically. The oil is going to come soon, I think, as Canada does something about it. But I think right now, as he's telling Republicans about the prices that aren't going to change, why isn't their stance changing at all? I know it's a cult mentality, but I mean, you're not only are you going to pay what we're paying right now, what you feel is unfair, but you're going to pay more.
It's such a ridiculous, and by the way, I appreciate you calling, my friend. Thank you so much. It's such a ridiculous argument that Republicans have been making for several years now. First of all, inflation was up all over the world, but they want to blame Joe Biden. And then inflation is under 3% now, unemployment numbers way down. And yet somehow they want to blame Joe Biden, but then compared to all the other G7 countries, we're number one with the lowest inflation. They don't want to give Joe Biden any credit, but it's Joe Biden's fault. Inflation up all over the world. Gas prices were up everywhere. Now they've dropped way down. But Donald Trump will take credit for another good economy. It's what he did back in 2016. Look at the economy he left Joe Biden. It's a joke. It's a joke. So, programming note for you. We have some great guests scheduled throughout the remainder of the week. We're still trying to fill the dots with a few. Adam Mockler is going to be joining us from Midas Touch. We've got Leonard Cardinal, who's going to be joining us in studio. I try to give you guys what you want. You guys love Leonard. He's a 25-year lieutenant and a really good dude. And we're going to have him in tomorrow. Certainly, we're going to be talking about this school shooting and many other topics of the day. But you guys wanted Leonard to come back, so I give you guys what you want. Leonard's going to be coming back in studio tomorrow. Brett Raymer from the hit TV show Tanked, huge MAGA supporter. He rescheduled. He's going to be coming in this week as well. So we have some great guests lined up the remainder of the week. I hear people all the time say, what's the best place to watch your show, to listen to your show? Well, there's a lot of great platforms, right? We have the Occupy Democrats Network on Facebook, the Washington Press Network, a lot of different places, the FMAM dial here locally. But I would say the best place to watch my show is on my YouTube channel, at PTL Radio Show. I think we gained like 1,000 subscribers over the weekend. I'm very appreciative. We've passed 50,000 subscribers, so that's free. So give me a thumbs up, comment, be interactive. I'm interactive on there. At PTL Radio Show is where you can subscribe to my YouTube page. And of course, I get people all the time saying, how can I get more involved? Well, this is an independently owned radio show, which means nobody tells me what I can or can't say, which is a nice thing to have. But with that comes a lot of work, and we need your support. So what can you do to support what we do? Check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. Besides subscribing to my YouTube page, you go to pushingthelimits.live. We sell PTL gear, shirts, hats, beanies, you name it, we sell it on there. And also there's an opportunity on there to donate. It takes 2 minutes of your time through PayPal, I believe. Right on the front page, pushingthelimits.live, you'll see a donate button. Doesn't matter what it is, man. $5, $10, $20 a month, whatever you can donate, we really do appreciate. Please check that out at pushingthelimits.live, and we appreciate you for doing so. Also, of course, the official gaming bar of the Pushing the Limits radio show. I'm talking about Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Great promotions. Today is Monday. Mondays and Wednesdays this month. If you earn 300 points, you get a free bottle of wine. Also, during Vegas Golden Knights games. I almost said home games. No, for any game. Vegas Golden Knights games, you can earn up to $500 in free slot play while actively playing a machine and hitting a 4 of a kind. So please check them out. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones, my official gaming bar of the Pushing the Limits radio show. So we're following a lot of the breaking news stories. We talked, of course, I want to thank Pete Dominic, my friend Pete Dominic, CNN contributor, for joining us on the show as well. He's great. Obviously, we're going to continue to monitor the situation and this horrific tragedy that took place at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, where we know of at least, sadly, several people that have lost their lives. I don't have any more information for you at the moment. I know there's going to be another press conference within the hour, and as soon as we get more information tomorrow, we'll share that with you on the program. It's another terrible tragedy, but the Republicans will be saying thoughts and prayers, while Democrats will be urging Republicans to pass some comprehensive gun reform bills, which I'm pretty confident they will not do. It is sad. It is unfortunate, but we will cover it tomorrow. Leonard Cardinal will be joining us in studio as well. And of course, it's always the most interactive show on radio, on the internet, and we will take some more phone calls. Thank you all, by the way, all of you for the calls. Listen, even the people that disagree with me, there's always going to be disagreement, but I don't mind that. I like pushback. I want people to call in and give me pushback. I entertain those types of phone calls, but I'm so proud and honored that we get calls every day all over the country, man. We get calls from Australia, Canada, all over the country and the world. So we appreciate that very, very much. And we're going to continue to work really hard to bring you the most entertaining and hopefully informative show you can find anywhere. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Check out the website, pushingthelimits.live. Merchandise up there and everything else. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a great day, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie?